Hello, my name is Jason Pitt from the Made Group. Hope you're well. I wanted to make a brief video introducing Back in Britain and what it means to us. So Back in Britain means different things to different people, and you may have seen on social media a few people are already using our assets to promote what they're doing for Britain. So for us it means, what are you doing in your community? So how are you supporting your community, how are you supporting your people, and how are you supporting your supply chains? It's a very critical part of Back in Britain, which is we're all really working towards a common aim. So you may have seen our adverts, or if you haven't seen them, you will start to see them, which is we're working for all 67 million people of the UK. So we've written a manifesto which you can download from our website. So Made in Yorkshire, Made in the Midlands. If you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see a Back in Britain initiative link. And from there, you'll see, as we can see here, you can pledge your support by signing the online letter. You can download the manifesto and you can use the resources and assets. So the idea was originally created by a set of manufacturing leaders who wanted to have the appointment of a Minister for Manufacturing. And we back that idea because we understand that for a country to prosper and to have a national security competence, it needs industrial capacity. So the UK, contrary to popular belief, still does have a strong manufacturing contingent, and if you just drive on the motorway, you'll see the factories dotted along either side. There's industrial estates aplenty. However, we're not as big as we once were. And for the UK to stay strong, for the UK to be able to defend itself, and for the UK to have prosperity, it needs a strong industrial capacity. So that's what we're campaigning for. We think it's really important that the Minister for Manufacturing, not another all-parliamentary group, not another SME council, not another select committee. We need the experts inside of the government, not outside of the government. And evidence, if there is evidence required. So if you look at the COVID crisis, supply chains effectively collapsed, and people were sort of scratching their heads thinking, well, how do we make this PPE? How do we make these rubber gloves? We were not able to supply because we don't produce, we've not got access to the raw materials, and we didn't have the manufacturing capacity in those particular sectors anyway. So the same can be said of other sectors. So obviously we're talking about industry, heavy industry predominantly, but there's also pharmaceuticals, just basic things like blood pressure medicine. It's used by millions of people each week, but yet there is supply chain challenges in and around those everyday medicines, and the UK needs a supply chain resilience strategy. It needs an industrial strategy, and that will encompass everything from energy to raw materials to the producing of the end results. And the UK does have a lot of advanced manufacturing companies. So we've got some big companies, BAE Systems, we've got Rolls-Royce, but you've got to look at these companies not as one Goliath that does everything. They're largely assembly plants because a lot of the manufacturing is done in the supply chains. So people often don't see that. If you're working in manufacturing companies, obviously you already know this, but if you're in government, you don't know this. And why would you know this if you've not worked in the sector or you've not been in the sector? And yeah, having people within the STEM sector, within government, would be a massive boost to our abilities to be able to really strategize. So if you look at, just from my observations, if I look at that sort of typical engineer or manufacturing boss, I would say about 70% of them would be classed as introverts, introverted people, and that means that 50% of the population, by the way, is introverts. It's just a different way of processing information. So an extrovert is constantly, there's not necessarily a filter between the thoughts and the words, and an introvert is digesting and thinking of things. They're not necessarily the first person to get up and speak at an event, and they maybe don't like public speaking. So these people are just as valuable, just as intelligent, maybe even more intelligent than the people who are currently in the government. So we just think that a cross-party, apolitical manufacturing minister, and that person ideally would have an engineering background, so they understand fully how things are made, they understand the supply chains and how these things interplay within strategy, so that the UK can actually have the best possible chance to have prosperity and security. The risk of not doing this is we get more and more polarisation and division within the political spectrum, because none of these parties can actually solve the problem because they don't have the technical expertise. And you could argue that the set of problems is now so complex that it would almost be better solved with an algorithm. Even things like big Goliath organisations like the NHS, it's not an easy problem to fix. And just because somebody says they're going to do this doesn't mean they're actually capable of doing it. So yeah, we kind of need to have a pragmatic approach where we just look at a particular role, like a CEO of manufacturing, and we just say, can we just get somebody in who's not going to just talk about what they're going to do and try and win votes, but actually pragmatically can actually help the sector and therefore the community. So that's the whole idea behind the Back in Britain campaign. So if you look at the screen here, so if you go to madeinthemidlands.com, backing-Britain-2024, you could do the same for Yorkshire. It works on all those pages. The resources, so we've got posters, logos, they're all free, they're decentralised, so even if you're not a member, you can still access that material, sign the pledge. We're looking to get over 10,000 people to sign this pledge, and then we've got some effectively some activism in terms of sharing the content, the posters, and then eventually we'll do a petition, but ultimately the petition may not be enough, so there may be more behind that in terms of writing to our individual MPs, invite them to our factories so we can sort of speak to them one-to-one and actually just seeding ideas with people looking for the cause. There'll be a lot of new MPs in Parliament this year, and obviously we're going to have the challenges of some of those holding extreme views, and we're just going to have to weather the storm on that. But out of the batch of MPs, there will be at least some that have maybe got a little bit of integrity, even if they don't have the skill set. So you can only work with what you can work with. So that's our strategy for supporting and backing Britain. The election is tomorrow. I think you'll find that all of the pollsters will be wrong on this, and there will actually be a few shocks in that system. And I think if it'll do one thing is the apathy in the UK, and particularly I would say even in businesses, people are apathetic to politics and the political spectrum. However, you will actually eventually realise that it is in your interest to actually be a bit more involved. So we've been speaking to a few candidates. We've supported a former member who's standing for Parliament in Stratford, and we're trying to engage with people. And I do feel that the business leaders who are apathetic and say politics is not for me need to revisit the history books. If you go back when Britain was in its heyday, when it was the most prosperous and the most successful, the business leaders were in the government, they were the politicians, and they were respected. So that's just food for thought, and I'm not trying to encourage anybody to stand for 4 years' time, but I just wanted to get you thinking that that the apathy is the thing that will be the undoing of the country. So we need to challenge that, and we all need to be a little bit more engaged, a little bit more interested. So the first thing you can do is sign our pledge, and it's a micro volunteering activity. It will take you less than a minute. It's not onerous. We're sending out pin badges, so we've got these really cool logos. They're kind of the Union Jack is a heart colour. So we're having them produced at the moment. So they're not quite ready with us yet. But as soon as they're in, I'm going to post everybody who signs the pledge one of these badges as a thank you. And it's just a little way that you can help with the message to back Britain. Thanks.